Madam Chair, a point of order.
Yes.
We never adjourned our previous meeting.
Actually, yes, we did. I adjourned the meeting, Mr. Pearl.
Madam Chair, you don't have the right to adjourn a meeting. If you check with Robert's rules, it takes a majority vote of the board after a motion. So are we following Robert's rules or are we not?
In regards to when we approve things, yes, but when we do not have the ability to continue the meeting, the chair has the right to adjourn the meeting. We are now moving on to the opportunity for the public.
I'd like to go on the record, excuse me, I'd like to go on the record that I disagree with that and that our meeting was not properly adjourned. Thank you.
There being no one here this evening, we will move on. Under new business, we are discussing the planning for the high school public forum on October 29th from 6:30 in the Colley cafeteria. One of the things I would like to have us discuss is calling it an information meeting and not a public forum. I think we are going to be providing the community with information, and that we should be calling it an informational meeting so that people know that they'll be coming and getting data. Yes, Mr. Liskars.
Are you making a motion?
No, I'm just opening it for discussion.
But we need motions to have discussion, correct?
Sometimes we have done it. Typically it is that way, but of recent we have tried to be a little more laxed in having open dialogue at a number of different occasions. And I just thought we would start that way. But if you'd like a motion, we can certainly have a motion.
Madam Chair, the only reason I ask is because I believe we had a motion and a majority to accept the public forum. So now if you want to change it the week before we're about to have it, I think it would require a motion.
Okay. Do I have a motion to change the name of the high school meeting from the high school public forum to the high school information meeting?
I'll make a motion to change the name of the high school public forum to information meeting.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now we can discuss.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, I'd like to go on the record that I believe that this subject was changed to this meeting by you for the express purpose of having a majority vote to support the motion that you're now making. And I object to that, as this was an agenda item which was discussed at our last meeting. And I feel that you are not leading this board properly by moving this issue to a point where you have a majority vote. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Liskars.
I'd like that to be reflected in the record, please.
I'd also like to make an objection for the record. I also believe this special meeting was not only done in private, not in a public session. We had discussed this at the last meeting, that the agenda item was already created. And again, now a week before the public forum, which a public forum to me says an exchange between the Hooksett residents and the board, we're now changing it to an informational meeting. To me, that tells me a one-way direction, and I disagree with that. So I want to go on record with that very clearly. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I would ask anyone who's going to support this motion what the reason is that they would like to change it.
Is there any more discussion on this agenda item, on this motion?
Madam Chair, I think at this board, it's time that we start stating the reasons why we vote for things, to be clear with the public. This is something that's been set. If we're going to change it, I'd like to hear from the board, full discussion and deliberation about why it's important to change.
That is up to the individual board members to choose to or not choose to express their reasons.
Well,
You're not
Madam
forcing
Chair,
people to do that. Yes, Mr.
Madam
Dunbar.
Chair, I would,
Mr. Dunbar.
I'd like to
Mr.
finish
Dunbar,
my
you have not
comment,
been
please.
recognized.
Point of order, point of
Mr.
order.
Dunbar.
Point of order, Madam Chair. The policy
You
clearly
have not
states,
been recognized by the chair.
I don't
Therefore,
have to
you-
for point of
Yes.
order. I don't have to for point of order. Our own policies state that this school board will fully deliberate and discuss all motions brought before it. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Dunlop.
Okay, so maybe, I guess reading into this more than, or less than everybody else is, I thought the object of this night was to provide information to the public about what our plan is, where we've talked about what the different MOU agreements that Dr. Littlefield's working on, and also the tuition agreement with Pinkerton, and things that come in around that. So I thought this was, my thought process was, and whatever the name of it was, I thought it was to inform the public about where we're going, not having like an input night back and forth. So again, I thought it was about a process of moving forward and talking about those items, transportation, talking about a process that we would have in place for our 8th graders, and you know, basically trying to lead and talking about where we're going instead of talking about where we've been. So I don't get what the big deal is to change the name. Again, maybe when the name was put on the agenda, all 5 of us had a different idea of what it was going to look like. I thought that's why we're sitting down tonight, to try to hash out what it's supposed to look like and what we're going to discuss.
What the big deal is, Mr. Dembo, is we had a full quorum at our last school board meeting. This item was on the agenda, and the board refused to discuss it. There was a motion made by Mr. Pearl, because he wasn't sure if he was going to be attend tonight, which didn't seem to matter. That motion was denied by a 2-2 vote. And it was just following a format of a previous forum that the school board had. Because 2 weeks before a forum, to try to lay out intelligently what you're going to discuss with the public or present to the public is not a great plan. Worse than that is forcing a meeting, a special meeting, to ensure that certain members of the board can attend and give only 1 week ahead of time for preparation. That's a worse plan. But that's the plan this board has chosen to do, and that's why we're here tonight. We don't have anything solid right now. We can discuss possibilities, potentials, but we have nothing solid except for existing policies. So you may call that going backwards. It's called being realistic with the public, whose money we're spending and whose time we're utilizing here when we have 8th grade parents trying to make decisions for their children, and all they get are suppositions, maybes, this is in the works. Being a parent of an 8th grader last year, I know that's not a comfortable position to be in when you're trying to plan the future high school for your child. Thank you.
Is there any- yes, sir.
I just was under the impression that this was going to be a meeting about where we are and where we're going to inform the public, so I just thought the name change suited that.
Yes, Mr. Dunlop.
So ideally, when Dr. Littlefield gets here, we will get a little bit better idea of where we're at with the negotiations. We can ask him where he is at with those. We can make, if we're talking about the forum items related to the forum, we can make decisions on some of those other items and discuss them and get them in place so that we can talk about them at the info night or forum or whatever we want to call it.
Madam Chair, I would remind you that this special meeting was called to discuss the format of the forum and only the format of the forum. I don't know that this motion is even proper, but we're here to discuss the format. So why don't we call this question and get on to the format, because that's what we're here for.
Would there be
No.
any further discussion?
Yeah, again, I believe, David, that where Dr. Littlefield is in negotiations is a key part of a high school planning night. Because that's our process that's going to be in place for next year, whatever it ends up being, is critical that we know that. Talk to the staff about, we actually had talked to Karen last week about transportation issues, which should be something that's discussed. And also Dr. Littlefield will be able to give us an update on tuition amounts and et cetera for the other schools, as well as how many students they will be able to take, et cetera, with the MOUs.
Yes, Mr. Listars.
At our last meeting on the agenda for the 15th, we not only posted to our website where normally Hooksett residents go to see the agenda, whether or not they're going to come to a meeting. That wasn't posted. What was posted on that agenda, which was our last meeting, on section 6, was updates from Dr. Charles P. Littlefield, Superintendent of Schools. At that time, Dr. Littlefield had no updates. On tonight's announcement, that again wasn't posted on our website, so
It is
parents,
on our website.
excuse me,
Okay, I'm just telling you it was there.
the agenda was not posted on our website as it normally is in the regular area for posting meetings. The only posting of this meeting on our website was a one-liner date. That's it. It is not a proper posting that this board has voted, excuse me, I have the floor.
Point of order. You are not speaking to this motion. You were talking about Dr. Littlefield not having updates. You are out of order.
Excuse me, I'm not out of order because you didn't declare Mr. Dembo out of order when he brought into the conversation Dr. Littlefield making an announcement tonight about...
He didn't say announcement. He said if he had any updates.
And that's what I'm addressing, Madam Chair. If you'd let me continue without cutting me off.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So as I said, it was properly posted on our last meeting agenda. Tonight, there is no opportunity for updates from Dr. Charles Littlefield, Superintendent of Schools. That is not properly posted. So Dr. Littlefield could be in attendance tonight to hear what it is the board is discussing, but if any kind of announcements are made about future plans, I will object because the public is not informed, and that's not how I want to operate on a board. In secret, in private, in special meetings, and just bring anything we want up on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question to order. Mr. Pill, you have spoken twice on this motion, and according to Robert's rules, you're only allowed to speak twice on a motion. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
No?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
You have not voted on the previous motion.
No.
Yes, Mr. Pill.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the format used at the 2012 high school forum.
I'll
Can I get a
second that for discussion.
Thank you. I think that would be a simple thing to do. As Mr. Liskars has pointed out, we're not here tonight to discuss new information and options. This is a very narrow meeting about the format. I would think that that would be us talking about having the Pledge of Allegiance, having a presentation point, having questions from the audience, how we're going to answer those questions, and perhaps a closing. Not the content. We are here to talk about the format, and that's what you called this under. So I think this should be pretty simple business, and I think we're also going to be limited, since we have no time to approve presentations as a board, that we're all going to have to answer on our own, or we're going to have to vote right there. Because at the previous forum that we did, I put together a presentation which was previously approved, and I gave it as the view of the board. We have no other meeting to approve anything. So I think we ought to move forward, adopt this format, and then we can discuss the timing and so forth.
Yes, Mr. Pill.
I would say it should be about both format and content.
Yes, I would say,
Yes,
Mr.
Mrs. Axton.
I do think that content is part of the format. I don't see how it wouldn't be. I think that we need to know what we're going to present. not just the format, but actually what we're going to tell the public. So I think content is important. That's what I thought we were here to discuss.
I would agree with you, but if you read the email and you read the policy clearly states that the board will only discuss what is provided as the reason to the board members in writing. And the email from the chair says, special meeting is being called to discuss the format of the forum. That is all.
To me, format means all-encompassing. That would mean the content and how it's actually going to proceed. That's what format would mean to me. And right here under new business, it says planning of. So I think that that's all, we can do all of that tonight.
Just for public record and for the public's information, the policy we're referring to is HSD file BEB, special board meetings. And one sentence in there says, only business which is stated in the notice shall be transacted at the meeting. The notice that went out to the Hooksett School Board on Monday, October 14th, this is not in public, this was on our email, was from Chair Corcus, which said, I am calling a special meeting of the Hooksett School Board on Tuesday, October 22nd, for the purpose of establishing the format of the public forum on October 29th. Please let me know if you're available on the 22nd. Mr. Dembo, Mrs. Axton replied in the affirmative, so they had quorum. Mrs. Corcus, or I apologize, Ms. Corcus posted the meeting, and in that she changed to new business planning for the high school public forum. So the original notice that went out to the school board is different than the notice that actually got posted and wasn't properly posted because it wasn't on the website with the agenda. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Yes, Mr. Pearl, this is your last time speaking on this motion. You've spoken once before.
Madam Chair, I would like to know if we're going to selectively follow Robert's rules, or we're going to do it all the way, because if we're going to limit discussion, let's do it all the way. I would make this comment to support my argument. If I asked Leanne what format the minutes are in, she would probably say Word. It has nothing to do with what the content of that document is. The format is the structure. And if you want to stretch that and you want to fudge it, then I guess you're going to have to do that. But it's a stretch to say that the format is the content. This is why I thought we would vote at this at the last meeting and be done with it, and we didn't need a special meeting to come here. It isn't fair to the public to warn that you're going to talk about format, and then we go ahead and discuss all this information.
There being no further discussion, I will call the question to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sorry, what's the question?
To adopt a format we used at the last high school forum.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
It was, the vote was 2 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. So the motion fails.
Pardon me, Madam Chair. Are you shaking your head at somebody for a reason, or
What? I'm not,
we just nodded to Mr. Dembo? I'm not sure what that's about.
I didn't,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My mistake.
I just looked down at my favorites. So we should talk about,
Madam Chair, Robert's rules says you'll have a motion on the table for discussion.
okay. Mr. Dembo and Mrs. Axton, because it also says in Robert's rules that the chair should not be making all of the motions.
I didn't say you did make all of
I
them.
was just stating why I wasn't coming up with a motion right away and asking for the,
You can make one motion without making all the motions.
So, okay. based on what's going on here this evening, I would like to make a motion that we move our high school info night, which is what it's called now, I guess, to a later date. If I get a second, I will speak to my motion.
I'll second.
So, as I said earlier, again, we have a disagreement about what this night's supposed to look like, which is evident. I wanted to obviously get some input from Dr. Littlefield on where he is with the negotiations with the different districts for the MOUs and the tuition contract. Right now, the only school that we know that will, or we have an agreement in place with to take our students that can take, probably not all of them, but some of them, is Manchester. We don't have agreements in place with the other 3 schools, Bow, Pembroke, and Londonderry, or Pinkerton. So we have no idea, we can't dictate to these districts how many kids they're going to take, or when they're going to take them, or what the tuition will be. We don't know that yet. We don't know, we had talked in prior meetings about the fact that Pinkerton would possibly have a minimum in the contract, which we don't know about, and we don't know what that number is. That's in the negotiation process.
Point of order, is this a motion or a discussion?
This is discussion.
Yep, is there a motion on the table?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize.
So, okay, so again, tied into that, a key aspect is we don't know what the tuition will be at these schools. Again, I talked about before, we don't know what the transportation looks like currently. We've spoken about that. We actually asked Karen to look into some scenarios for us, which we don't know. And basically, I don't think, actually too, from the sending schools, if anybody knows a child that has actually, I know 2 people that have went and toured Londonderry. I don't know about the other schools. And Londonderry told them they will not approve kids at this time. They're taking kids on a list. And once we get our negotiations done, I believe they said the word MOU to these folks, they weren't going to be accepting any kids at Londonderry. I don't know about the other schools. So obviously, there's a lot of unknowns. I know there was a forum that was done earlier this year, the second part of which never occurred. And then also, there was also a meeting, a Hooksett School Board workshop that was actually set up earlier this year that I think would have worked on addressing all that public input at the front end, but we moved a long way. We've obviously have our agreement that we've made with Manchester. Again, we know where we're going, all of us do, with these MOUs and with the schools, both in a public and non-public way. And we're very close, so again, I would like some input from Dr. Littlefield on where he's at, which hopefully he's here in a few minutes. But again, I look at this info night more of, we know what we're going to be doing. We've taken action, whether it be up or down on some of these agreements that we have out there that are being negotiated, so we can talk about what next year looks like.
Well, I would argue there are many things that we know that we could share with the public. For instance, what is the difference between an MOU and a tuition contract? There's a lot of concern about that. The fact that an MOU doesn't have to face the voters, and the tuition contract does. These are some basic things that we can talk about in a forum to get people ready for when they are presented with something that either we're going to decide on or they're going to decide on. To keep pushing the can down the road, yeah, we'll have all the information at some point, but we won't have the public anymore. We're losing the public. We need to have a public forum to let them ask us questions also before we vote on the MOUs or contracts, so that we can take their considerations and questions. Perfect example of this was the Manchester agreement. There have been a number of questions that have come up since that agreement was ratified by this board that never crossed my mind when we sat in that room and made that decision. And I don't want to feel that we're going to be in the same position here, where after we vote, people are going to ask us questions and we're going to say, "Oh, I didn't think of that," because it wasn't our perspective. Our kid wasn't in that situation. So public forum is to get people to come and share with us and us to share what we know and also share what we don't know so that we can go on the record and say where we are. If you wait, what are we going to wait? Push it until we voted, this board's going to vote on it? Then we're just going to tell people what we have done without listening to what they wanted.
Yes, sir.
The forums that I've attended, they generally end up having the largest amount of the community that show up. And, that end up coming to the meetings. I do think that a lot of people have been following along with our regular scheduled meetings as well. So I think that we are informing them as we have our regular meetings. I think that this informational meeting really should be about as much of what we can have solidified and let the public know where we're actually at, rather than having some holes and some pockets and we're not sure yet. I think we really should save those type of meetings for when we do when the community is actually willing to really come out and really participate. So I think that we should really utilize that to our best benefit and really know what's going on. I'd like to communicate to the public more actual information at our next big information meeting that we have.
Mr. Dunbar, did you have your hand up before Cheryl started? No. Okay. David?
Well, I would remind you that we represent the public. And before we're going to consider things, we need to hear from them. And even if we only provided a little bit of information next week, but we got a lot of information. I have got a lot of information from the public, but this board doesn't want to hear it because it's my survey. But I've got to tell you, there's a lot of points of view out there that need to be considered. And the way to do that is to have a forum and to get people to come. And I don't think it's a one-time shot. The one-time shot's on the angry issue where somebody wants to come. But if we can get people to come out and at this forum, tell them we're going to have another forum as soon as we get the full information, but answer the questions that we have, I think we're going to gain a little bit of trust with the community, because right now we don't have any. There's people that are saying, I'm not voting for anything that comes out of the school board. And we need to try to be proactive to change that. And we need to interact with the public in some type of a forum and let them be heard. So the idea of changing this to an informational meeting, right off you're changing it to a one-way street. You're saying, I'm going to tell you. And that's not going to help us in the minds of the voters that we want to approve a contract. So we're going down the wrong path, but let's go ahead and vote if you'd like.
Mr. Dunbar?
Yep. I would like to say, David, I think it's a little bit of both. I would say you give information, some valid, useful information about the major aspects of what we have going on in our plan going forward, and then we take questions from the public. I don't think there's anything wrong with the public having asked questions, whatever. But again, I think the majority of the big pieces of what we're going to be doing literally in a month or two, I mean, well, as far as any kind of thing that needs to go in front of the voters in March, but I mean, as far as trying to get a process in place for the 8th graders so that they're assigned for next year is something that's obviously should be done much sooner than later. So again, I just think we should be presenting at the front end like 3 or 4 major topics, some of which I already mentioned, and then have a question and answer session after that. That's fine. I'm kind of, I guess again, maybe a hybrid where I think it's good to have a little bit of both.
I was just going to say, I just find it interesting that you keep saying that what the public say, because the majority of people that I speak to, and I speak to a lot, I've been out in the field a lot over the fall season, and I don't hear that they're necessarily upset. They're definitely discouraged by how the behaviors on this board, but not by where we're going with the high school issue. That's not what I'm hearing. I hear a lot of questions, they ask me questions, and they seem satisfied that, you know, they feel like we're trying to give them as much choice as we can. So I don't really see where you're coming from with that, because that has not been my experience thus far with the public that I've been speaking with.
Point of order, I have a point of order, Madam Chair. I don't believe that this motion can stand. We have voted in the majority to have a forum on the 29th. That would require a vote of reconsideration if we're not going to have the forum. Would you agree? This board has voted in the affirmative at a previous meeting to have the forum. Now we're talking about not having it because Mr. Dembo's motion contains a line to move it, which means it would not occur on the 29th. Therefore, this question needs to be reconsidered. So it has to be brought by a person that voted in the prevailing side.
You are the prevailing side? So could you just amend it to?
So, David, what do you want? Again, this is semantics for me, but what do you need me to do to meet?
Well, first of all, did you vote for it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Then we need to vote not to have it. And then if you want to move forward to have another date, then that would be a separate motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we...
You're gonna withdraw the vote?
I'll withdraw my second.
I'll remake it after.
A motion.
I'll withdraw my motion. I would like to make a motion.
Move to reconsider.
Sorry. Madam Chair.
You want to state?
Madam Chair, I come back to this again. Let's go back to the original premise. We're talking about the format of the forum, not the date. How do we even, at this meeting, discuss changing the date of this thing? We're brought here to discuss the format under your specific request. Our policy upholds that. I don't think we can discuss the date. It has nothing to do with the format.
Mr. Dembo, if you would like to...
Can you please, no, I have a point
No,
of order.
I'm not.
I'm calling a point of order, Madam Chair.
I'm not.
Then the meeting is illegal because we're discussing something that's not specified in the special meeting.
It is also, it has already been stated by 2 board members that they feel the verbiage that was used covers both. You have been noted as not agreeing. That is your choice. We are continuing with the meeting.
I disagree. I would like to go on the record with the following statement. The school board is acting against its policy in discussing things at a special meeting that are not mentioned in the notice. Thank you.
Please note that. Mr. Dembo, if you are moving to reconsider, you would have to say, I move to reconsider the holding of the public.
I'd like to reconsider the motion that was titled "Planning for the High School." I would like to reconsider the motion to have the public forum on October 29, 2013, in lieu of doing an information night at a later date.
I'll second.
Yes, Mr. Wiscars.
I would also like to go on record that the board is violating.
So back up, just for clarity, so.
Sure.
I think if you're gonna reconsider, you can't change what the original vote was or change it, you have to vote to even discuss it. So I think your motion is, you make a motion to reconsider that vote, so you need to bring that back up on the table. Okay, so we're not gonna add the change of date.
So you can get rid of the word "sure."
Okay,
Yep.
so we're gonna say motion to reconsider the vote on having a public hearing. Okay, with a second,
Cheryl.
so that's the motion right now, okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Can you say
Lillian.
this again?
And discussion needs to say, stick with the motion to reconsider. Yes, Mr. Wiscars.
So I want to go on the record specifically With regards to this motion, that the Hooksett School Board is violating its own policy, policy BEB, and specifically, only business which is stated in the notice shall be transacted at the meeting. So I object to what's going on at this meeting today.
Mr. Hill?
Although I object to this motion and the fact that this meeting is discussing this motion, I will comment that if you look at the last meeting and how long it took us to come up with those budget workshop dates, and now we're going into the holiday season, the budget season, what is really going to be a practical date that we're going to be able to move this thing to? I think we owe it to the...
We're supposed to be discussing the motion to reconsider it, not where we're gonna move it to. It's
Fine.
the motion to reconsider.
Fine, I think that we should have this because we promised the public we're going to have it, and we voted for it. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we will call the motion to reconsider to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed,
No,
No.
motion passes 3-2.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Dunbar.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a high school information night the evening of Monday, November 25th. If I get a second, I'll speak to my motion.
Second.
Basically, all the items that I just talked about when I made the motion prior that was retracted. Again, from the get-go, I had looked at this night as an info night with a question session on the back end of it. A big part of that night is what information we have, what our future plans are for the kids at Hooksett and the schools they're going to attend, the tuition rates, transportation, what the process is for 8th graders. And also to the aspect of what was spoken about a little bit earlier. Again, we can get questions from the public and get their concerns at the information night. At the end of the day, we've all been working on this stuff for 2 or 3 months now, to what Cheryl's point was before. We're providing 5 schools for kids to attend is what our plan is what we're working on. We've asked Dr. Littlefield to work on. And we're giving people choice. We're talking about representation on a board. All those things that everybody from Hooksett has said they wanted, we are in the process of trying to provide. So I think we've been listening to the public as we've been going along, and I would be similar to Cheryl in that I think folks that I've spoken to in town that coached their kids over the years, I see in town at the Shaws, etc., they are more concerned about behaviors that have been exhibited both here and online, and they actually think what we're doing is great as far as the choices they're going to have.
objection, Madam Chair, is not speaking to the motion.
Thank you.
What was that? I'm sorry, what date did you suggest?
It was
Monday, November.
Monday, November 25th.
2020?
Correct.
Madam Chair, I object to setting a date. We're here to talk about the format for the forum, which there's no forum anymore. You're creating an informational meeting. This meeting should be done at this point, because we have, and I would also ask at this point that you have these minutes forwarded to the lawyer to convince you folks that we are violating policy at this point.
Yes, Mr. Lisco.
Just want to make a point for the record that we're trying to move this date now forward, or I should say back. We moved our JCB policy back. We keep delaying the parents of the 8th graders. And we keep talking about we're doing this for the reasons of having a more definite data. The big secret here that's going on is we won't have that definite until March, when the voters vote. And our superintendent has already told us that if we place kids and this votes down, chaos. would happen. I do not want to plan for chaos. I want this board to think about what they're doing, put their own interests aside, and think about what's best for the majority of the 8th grade parents and their kids. Because right now, I keep hearing we need more finite data, we need more details. All of this comes to a close in March, whether we like it or not. We can say all kinds of great things or bad things or whatever we want to say. It doesn't really matter because the voters are going to have the last say. So I'm opposed to this, pushing things off again. Push off JCB, now we're going to push off the meeting. I think we need to be consistent with what we tell the public, and I agree with Mr. Pearl. We're supposed to be talking about things that happen on the 29th, as was stated in this posting, and now if we move this past the 29th, the meeting has to end. We can't talk about anything anymore, this special meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Dunbar.
So, again, we all sat in on the same public meetings here, and we sat in on the same non-public meetings, which we can't discuss. But something I can discuss is what David brought up. 4 parts of what we're talking about are MOUs, which means that if we approve those don't have to go in front of the voters. So decisions can be made long before then. Also, just an item of note, last year, and you were involved in the process too, the board didn't start approving kids, and maybe 1 or 2 trickled through until December last year. So again, the sky is not falling for the kids in 8th grade. Our kids last year didn't know inadvertently, maybe not announced to them, but maybe if their parents communicated with them, that our kids were going to the places that they're at until the end of June last year, when the negotiations were struck with Manchester. So again, I'm not looking to hold out on this thing forever for the kids, but again, we want to give people solid choices and give them information that is valid so that they can select where they want their youngster to go next year.
Yes, Mr. Paul.
Mr. Scards, could you read the announcement again? The announcement of this meeting, the written notice that we received.
You need to keep conversation to the motion that's on the floor.
It's relevant.
So I have 2 notices. I have the one that went to the board in an email, and then I have the one that went to an agenda that wasn't posted on the website.
The email is the official notification of the board in writing of the special meeting. So that's the one I'm interested in.
Okay, that was from Chair Corcus on Monday, October 14th at 9:17 p.m. The importance was high, and it said, I am calling a special meeting of the Hooksett School Board on Tuesday, October 22nd for the purpose of establishing the format of the public forum on October 29th. Please let me know if you are available on the 22nd. If the 22nd does not work for the majority of the board, October 21st is a possibility. Thank you for your prompt attention in this matter. Sincerely, Tricia Corcus.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we no longer have a forum. We no longer have a forum on the 29th.
Can we speak to my motion? How about that?
Excuse me, this is
Absolutely.
excuse me,
Speak.
Madam Chair, this is point of order. You are violating policy, and I'd like you to explain what we're doing in the special meeting when there is no 29th, there is no forum. We are
We have
outside.
changed.
Yes,
the
but
name
we're
of the
outside of the notice of
We
the
are well
meeting.
within our rights to talk.
No, we are not. I ask that we
I have a
suspend this
different
meeting until we get a legal ruling,
I have a
because
different
you
opinion.
are,
Mr.
okay, please explain your opinion, Madam Chair.
Mr.
I've explained mine.
I'm not getting into it with you. Mr.
No,
Dunning.
Madam Chair, I think it's time that we end this meeting. Please explain to me your notification and how it covers the discussion
I'd
that
like
we're
to
now
call a
having.
question.
Someone please explain that to me? No 29th, and there's no forum.
We have a motion to call the question.
It's irregular, this is improper.
Leanne, could you read back my motion, please?
To hold, first I have a motion to hold a high school information night on on Monday, November 25th.
Okay, all those in favor of calling the question?
Madam Chair, I'd like to know how that motion is relevant to this special meeting.
All those in favor?
How is that relevant?
Mr. Per-
Yes.
If you do not stop
Yes.
hollering at me.
What are you gonna
You
do?
will be asked to leave the meeting.
We'll go ahead and do that, because we should all leave this meeting, because you've heard the notice, you know the policy, and we are not here legally under our own school board policy. You haven't even waived the rules for that. So what is your
All those
defense?
in favor
No, Madam
signify
Chair,
by saying
what is your
aye.
defense?
Insane. We
Okay.
understand you don't agree.
No, what's your defense then?
I'm not going to defend myself to you. I feel perfectly fine
Phil?
with at this meeting.
David.
I would like to
Perfectly
continue.
fine, you're violating
We
policy.
know what you speak. we know
Mr.
what you
Liscars
feel.
brings the
Let's
policy
continue.
here, he reads it to you, he reads the notification, and you all decide to say
Yes, we
it doesn't
disagree
matter.
with you.
No, it's not that you disagree with me, it's your policy.
Yes,
All those in-
yes, I called the question. I answered that yes.
Okay. All those opposed to calling the question? Are you not voting, abstaining? Motion passes. 3 people voted in the affirmative. We're calling the question. All those in
I'd like to go on the record again and oppose this motion and the line of this whole conversation. We are not covered under proper meeting notice.
All those in favor of Mr. Dembo's motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Are you opposed, abstaining?
Madam May I?
You need to vote. Are you abstaining or saying no or not?
I have a point of order. Since we are now illegally in a meeting,
We are not in an illegal meeting.
we are, because we're
In
not,
your opinion, and you are not a
okay,
lawyer.
so,
The motion carries 3-0.
Madam Chair, you don't need to be a lawyer to read your own policy. You have no defense for it. I'm not going to participate in an illegal meeting.
I'm not going to participate, but I am going to enter the public session and watch what you folks do. Thank you.
And I'd just like to go on the record and say that this board has been presented with the policy, presented with the information, and I would like this forwarded to the lawyer for an opinion.
At the will of the board, it can be forwarded to the attorney.